and that is I'll be closing out my 25 years with the community colleges. I have loved being part of that magnificent organization and the people we serve. I know the people who we have brought to the system for running are magnificent. They will run well and do well in the future, as you all hope. But I must put it in perspective. When I started in 1990, Representative Martin was in the legislature and had already finished over 20 years in the legislature. So, based on his distinguished service, I think I'm in the second half of my career, if I'm misfortunate. I understand you want us to do an orientation about the community colleges, and that's what I'd like to do. Put it in perspective, that must be a little bit of the history background that I love. Let me begin by explaining a little bit of our history and then quickly get into who we are and what we're doing and more importantly what I see for the future. The history of the community colleges, we began in 1946 when Governor Hildreth created the Augusta Vocational Technical Institute. Obviously, it was put in place to serve returning veterans. 2 years later, it moved down to South Portland on Fort Preble. And of course, we know today as Southern Maine Community College, enrolling close to 7,000 students. In the 60s, when our economy faced the technological revolution going on, we added 5 VTIs in our state. And then in 1994, we added our 7th college, which was Bill County Community College. In 1989, we transitioned from VTIs to technical colleges to better explain to the state that we were colleges, and that was the purpose behind it. In 2003, we converted from technical colleges to community colleges. And at the time, we were one of only 3 states in the nation that did not have community colleges, so we were quite a ways behind. When we did that, we joined 1,100 community colleges across the nation, and they enroll nearly 50% of all the undergraduates in America, so we play a significant role in our country. I believe the transition from technical colleges to community colleges has served the state quite well. Since 2003, when we converted, our enrollment has increased by 80%. That's the 18,000 students enrolled today, 8,000 more students since 2003. So we've had tremendous growth since we made that transition. I'm also pleased because I hear frequently, have you abandoned the occupations? What happened with the occupations? Well, since 2003, we have 4,000 more students in the occupation programs enrolled every year than we did when we started. In fact, 30% of the students who enroll in liberal studies transfer over to occupations once they get out of colleges. So it's stayed true to our mission. About 70% of our enrollment is in occupations, and the most important thing is follow the money. 85% of our instructional budget is spent on occupations. Occupational programs were our past, our present, and will always be our future. So I want to make sure that's clear for all of you. I'm also pleased with what's happened in our transfer programs. Over 42% of our graduates move on to baccalaureate programs. We'll surprise them. And if you also want to look at it, in the last 3 graduating classes, our students enrolled in 223 different colleges and universities across the country. 40% of those graduates went on to our university system. So they go everywhere. This is a place where they start and they move on. A quick overview of our system. It's a $174 million budget. The state represents 54% of our budget. 900 employees, another 600 adjunct faculty. Tuition and fees, $3,400. Proud to tell you that is the lowest tuition and fees of any institution in all of New England. That's not by chance. Only 8 out of 15 years we froze our tuition, we've kept it down, we've not increased it more than $2 a credit hour when we have increased it. Now, having said that, that's the good news. 86% of our students are on financial aid, the lowest tuition in New England. So I think I've heard the comments of my colleagues. Tuition is relative. It's really relative to Maine people, what they can afford, not how we compare to others. And obviously we use it in speeches, but in the end, what can a Mainer afford to do when they want to go to college? Our average age is 27. Students coming directly from high school is 41%. Now I'm very pleased because in the 90s it was only 24%. And so for many students who were unsure of a baccalaureate or weren't sure about occupation, now as community colleges, they found a place they can go and transfer on or transfer over to occupations. We offer over 300 programs, and 85%, we are the sole provider of higher education in those fields. 85%. We have a 92% job placement. The average starting salary is $34,000, and we have a large group of students who earn over $50,000 a year after 2 years of education. Let me talk a little bit about our major partners. First is baccalaureate institutions. We have very strong partnerships with the private colleges in Maine, from us and St. Joe's, Thomas, Bates, Bowdoin, and Colby. We have students who transfer them all the time, and all the credits will transfer in. I'm very pleased about that. Currently, we're working on some very exciting things with the university. I think it was a little misunderstood. We've been transferring students to the university forever. That is always going on. But it needs to improve, and that's what's been going on. And so we've been working closely with the university. I'm proud to tell you, next May, we will sign, this coming May, excuse me, we will sign an agreement that will be for comprehensive transfer between the system. Long overdue, and I'm very pleased. For those of you who don't play in academia, transfer is the receiving college controls it, not the sending college, the receiving college. So as we go on to Hudson and St. Joe's, we had any issues with the university. Overall, it was actually fairly good. There were some places it was a little bumpy. To their credit, they took the time to work through their own internal transfer between their own universities. They cleaned that up, and then they began work with us. And we've been working with them since last May, meeting every month, and we're on course to do exactly what you hope for all of us. And I will tell you, the university, from their own research, it will show that our graduates perform, well, the GPA is how the performance department called. Through the GPA is equal or better than students who start the university. We know how to prepare them when they go on to successful in our universities. I'm also pleased with Maine Maritime Academy. We created a program called Maine Maritime Prep, and it was to help address students who applied to Maine Maritime who were on the edge, because there is obviously the need in their academy. It's a very serious academic rigor. And so what we created is a program where they send students to the community colleges for a prescribed set of courses in order to ensure that that student is academically, has the foundation, and has proven that he or she will be successful. The program started last year. There were 16 students in it. And today, there are 10 of those students now enrolled as sophomores at the Maine Maritime Academy. All of their credits earned by us transferred into Maine Maritime Academy. I thank President Brennan for his help in creating it. I think it's a great one. Our other major partner, of course, is K-12. You'll hear of something called dual enrollment. That's where students take college courses while they're in high school. We are the largest provider of dual enrollment in the state, 2,700 students. The university is probably second with 800. So we're a significant player in addressing that. Looking at the bare minimum, that means those students save at least $800,000 in tuition by doing that at our colleges. So I'm very pleased. We have nice articulation agreements between us and the career and technical centers, where we recognize credit for work taught at the CTE that comes now into our colleges. And the third major part for us is the private sector. Obviously, they're looking for our graduates, and that's great news. Even the bad economy, to know that 92% are still getting jobs, and we're pleased with that. And 93% are placed right here in Maine. But we also have contracts with the private sector. They hire our faculty because of their expertise. Last year, over 7,000 private sector employees were trained by the community colleges and paid for by the private sector for what we do. We also have a program called Maine Quality Centers for all new and expanding businesses. Every major expansion in the state, we've been at the heart of doing that behind the scenes. You name it, we have been there. And what it does is we do offer free training for those expanding businesses so that they will have the skilled workers they need when they open or to expand. We also had a very interesting program this year on the Maine Quality Centers for incumbent workers. Maine has some wonderful people, but they need to upgrade their skills. And so we began an incumbent worker upgrade program. and we did it as a pilot. We had 152 people go through it in our first year. We're very excited because that gets at people who may be promoted if they have the right skill sets. It will play a role in doing that. And I guess the bottom line, when you look at the private sector, is do they believe in us? Well, in 5 years under our foundation, we've raised $26 million from the private sector. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They believe in us, and they have invested in us. Let me talk a little bit about what I see the most important part now and in the future, and that's our student success agenda. I begin by thanking Senator Millett for the work on the Commission on College Affordability and Retention. I won't steal her wonderful thunder that will be coming out very soon, what they're recommending to the state. But some of the items I'm covering are things that fit under our student success agenda. We've been working on it for 1.5 years with our college presidents, and I believe it'll be the roadmap to the future for our colleges. I'll cover only 3 of the 7 that we have in what we call the key building blocks for student success in our system. First and foremost, it's really hiring navigators. They're called student success counselors, a whole variety of names. But 50% of our students, they are the first in the family to go to college, and 70% of our students, neither parent has a baccalaureate degree. And so when they're looking for counsel about having issues, who do they turn to? The great Representative Rotundo from the Lewiston area. My son is a Bates graduate, and anytime he had questions, he would call us, and we would help him who we should talk to and why and what could happen. Well, if you've never been to college, you don't have that resource to turn to your parents and others to offer guidance. And so when we look at our students, we believe that additional support from how to navigate college, how to get the resources we have available on the college. Equally important is resources that are outside the college, dealing with everything from transportation to childcare, and sometimes even food. As you know, we've opened a food pantry at one of our colleges because our students are in that need. Now we know this is so important because we've tested it already. We had a program funded by the Kresge Foundation and Unum Corporation called Accelerate Me, and it was for the 200,000 Mainers who have some college but no degree. And so we went after that group of people with this Kresge grant. We enrolled 257 students at 3 of our colleges. The idea was to get them an associate degree in 1 year. We offered them tuition scholarships. They had first priority in taking courses, which is a very big thing for students. And they had navigators working with them. We had a 79% graduation rate of that class. In community college, that's beyond your imagination. And when we surveyed the students, thank you for the scholarship help. The priority in class was important to us. By far, the most important thing was the navigator. It was calling that person who could help them work their way through higher ed. And I tell you, if you want to change the face of higher ed in the state, particularly at the community colleges, navigators is the most important thing you can do. The second I want to cover on student success is academic preparation. And students come directly from high school, 50% have remedial issues before they can take their college courses. 54% overall of our students need remedial courses. And studies will show those who come in having remedial needs are far less chance of graduating than those who do not. It's also a major concern. It's because they're using the Pell Grant, the federal Pell Grant that helps them pay for college. They're using it for non-college courses. That's the sin of this. And so that is a serious problem in Maine. It's not just in Maine, it's across the country. If you looked at remediation, the #1 issue is math. 80% of the students who need remedials in math. If you look at the universities remedial, 80% in math. We do fairly well in English and writing areas, but in math, we have a very serious problem. I hope over time that gets addressed. Last summer, we created an initiative at all 7 colleges. A student success initiative is how we refer to it. Inside the family, we call it academic boot camp. And before you can enroll in the fall, you must attend the academic boot camp to strengthen your skills. And we've had fabulous results. I'll just cite one college, but we're very pleased with what it could be. We're going to run this for at least 4 years and test the pilot and see if it's as effective as we hope it will be. But at Maine Community College, 26 out of 27 of the students completed the summer intensive program. 24 improved, so they were able to take college-level English, and over half increased their level of math, development math, by 1 complete level. And so we know we have a formula that works if we spend time with those students. Clearly, we need to address that if we want them to be successful. The other student success initiative that's very important to our system, and I believe to the whole state, is increasing work study for students at college. Studies have shown that students who engage with the college, their graduation rate is higher. When you look at students, here's a very important insight for all of you, because we keep hearing us talk about students on financial aid. But I want to break it down so you see right inside the real issue. 86% of our students are financial aid. Only 50% are Pell eligible. So 36 have financial need without receiving any federal grant. You want to know who the middle class of Maine is? That's the middle class. That's the very group who don't get anything from anybody except scholarships that we can patch together to make it through higher education. That's the group we should be deeply concerned about. Work study is a magnificent way of addressing that problem. One is, right now, 80% of our students work at least 11 hours a week. And what is happening is they are building their academics around work. We need them to do the opposite, all right? Let me make sure. Work cannot dominate their academic experience. Clearly, we want to make sure that academics are first and that work is second. By bringing work study and increasing it at our colleges, we get at that very fundamental problem. Now, let me add one more important point to that. We have work study at our colleges right now. It's federally funded, but it's too small. But work study students, it does not touch their Pell eligibility. If you give a scholarship, it can reduce what they receive in Pell. Free money coming from the state to help them pay for college. Work study is not held against it. So if you wanted to give the biggest boost to Maine students, increase work study. They'll keep their Pell, so if they're poor, they'll have a greater chance of completing. And if they're in the middle class, they'll have the first relief I've seen in years, because it's calculated the problem they have is paying for college.
You want to take a second here for a question?
Whatever you wish.
You don't mind?
I was in the home stretch.
I can wait.
Okay.
He's done. I'll go when he's done.
Wait, I'll be in the home stretch.
I promise I am. In fact, the words are, finally, what do I need from you?
How about a question
from Senator Rowland?
I am pleased that the governor, in his proposed biennial budget, did increase the funding to the university system by $20 million and by Maine Maritime Academy for $1 million. I wasn't happy that the community colleges were flat funded. After 4 years of very challenging times, we need to have an increase in the budget of the community colleges if you want to make sure they stay healthy and that system stays strong. We don't have a deficit. We are running fiscally sound, but I don't want to put it in harm's way. We need it to be strong. So I would ask on behalf of the 18,000 students, please do not close the budget without addressing some financial assistance and investment in your community colleges. Second is we have over $100 million of repairs and renovations needed at our 7 colleges. I hope if you consider a bond for higher ed, that you would consider a bond between the range of $15 and $25 million to get at the highest priority of the community colleges. My last line, and I'll be glad to address any questions you have. This is a wonderful system that's doing great things for Maine people. The future is more exciting than the past, and I can't wait from the outside to be a long time, for the rest of my life, an advocate for this type of education. I know great things are about to unfold. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of questions for you, President Fitzsimmons, but before I start, I want to say, as Chair of the Workforce Committee over the last 2 years, it has been a pleasure working with you. We have 4 members on the Appropriations Committee and 2 on the Education Committee that were on Workforce. So you have 6 people sitting here who worked extensively, not only with you, with Chancellor Page, and with Dr. Brennan. And I have found all 3 of you have worked in the highest amount of cooperation and collaboration, and you were invaluable to our committee over the last 2 years. I also want to thank you for all of the tours that we went on with you, opening up your colleges, and of course hosting the capstone really at the Southern Maine Community College after 2 years, where we ended up our listening tour there with so many people. And I just think that we did accomplish a lot, and I'm extremely pleased to see that you are on schedule from what the committee wanted in May to do the transfer of credits, which have been working. And I also note also it's not the community colleges that we're having the problem, it's the school accepting them. And so that was a huge issue for us, and you're on schedule, you're doing exactly what the committee had asked you to do. And on just basically a personal note, I personally want to express my disappointment and my great loss in you leaving the community college system, and I personally want to thank you, and I wish you the best of luck in the future.
So, thank you very much.
And with that, my question is, when bringing on, what do you want to do to continue programs that are available and expanding? We do not have an initiative in front of us, so there's nothing for us to look at. What we need from the community college system is a list of your proposed initiatives with a dollar amount and exactly what it will do. And that is something that we can look at when we're going through the budget. But we need those types of information. I mean, if you're looking, I know just from the Workforce Committee, we had appropriated money to, there was a huge bottleneck and allowed another 500 students to go. I mean, for the first time in years, people can't get into the community colleges because you don't have the room for them, and that's not acceptable to me. The other thing, if you're looking for more money for navigators or increasing the work study, those are the types of things. So that's what I'm looking for the community colleges, is to get me something in writing, a list of your initiatives, what they will do, and what the dollar amounts are.
Senator, I'd be glad to, may I say that you would have expected from you, which is always, if we can address the base budget, that is the beginning of the journey. And I'm very pleased when you heard the announcements coming out of the Commission on College Portability and Retention, the items that you mentioned are actually approved by that commission.
Thank you very much.
With a dollar amount.
We have a question, Representative Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would echo Senator Valentino's comments. Serving on the Workforce Committee, I was particularly grateful and impressed with your leadership in taking on, outside of any money that we provided, the Education Coordinating Committee, pulling that group together, the Maine system, the K-12 folks, and you put together a plan, a roadmap for meeting Maine's pressing workforce needs within existing resources, which was a real challenge. And that document I read thoroughly, and I think a lot of other folks have found that very valuable. And it's not a study that's going to stay on the shelf as far as I'm concerned. So thank you for that. My question is, with all the increased demand you've had, with the loss of revenue, I mean, it's wonderful that you have the dual enrollments and the articulation agreements. Those are awesome. They're great for students, but they're a direct loss of revenue to the community colleges that a lot of folks don't recognize. And you've kept your tuition frozen most of the last decade. How have you, especially given the fact that you have a very high needs student population that you're serving, how have you managed to balance and keep in the black? And the 54% state funding that you talked about, that you're about 54% covered by the state, has that decreased over the years? And how have you made up that difference?
Yeah, in 2003, state budget was 46% of our budget. Today it's 34%. So we've had a significant drop as we have grown. I think several things have played a key role for us. One is we run very efficiently. I even brag about my own system office. When I started in 1990, there were 3,300 students, and we had 29 people in the system office. We have 18,000 students today, and I have 20 people. So we understood that the money belongs out of the colleges, and it's best served out there directly with students. I think the growth of the community colleges on the liberal arts side played a significant role. Every single occupation we offer is subsidized. If you look at the liberal studies and business programs, it actually generates revenue for our colleges, and so that played a significant role for the last few years. But I think it's really the leadership of the presidents. I think they've done a wonderful job doing less. But in my last address to the legislature, it was clear what I said was we hit the wall. I really don't see your community colleges growing unless you invest in them. I think they've gone as far as they can, and maybe I pushed a little too hard and we're running a little too thin. But they really won't grow unless you invest. And the other important thing that we did is we really don't allow deficit spending. So if we have a problem at a college, you have to balance your books every year. Now, that's caused some angst and some problems. It's not simple. But in the end, it's left us physically very sound at this point. In fact, I think it's the strongest we've been in our history, so I feel good about that. But the increased cost coming our way from the retirement system and healthcare, it's daunting. It scares me very much for the future without some investment coming from the state.
And Representative Farnsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Fitzsimmons, in some of the urban centers that we have in the state, we have a number of immigrant population, and I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what the community college system has been doing with that population in terms of getting them integrated into an educational setting so that they are prepared for better jobs than just taxi driving.
Yeah, and the two most pronounced, of course, would be in Southern Maine Community College, which is the greater Baltimore, and of course, it's Central Maine up in Auburn, which is, of course, Lisbon, Auburn. I'm very pleased. We've had tremendous influx of students who have immigrated to this country, now enrolled in our colleges. We built from scholarships to working with English as a second language, to actually some foundations giving us money to help in their transition. And as you know, one of the most pressing problems in the state is that we don't have enough new workers in our state. That is a very important population. And I think when I look at how hard they work in college, how much they want to be part of the American dream, they're a magnificent group to work with. And I know Dr. Knapp from Central Maine Community College would rave about the students, particularly from Somalia, who are at his college today. What a wonderful group and how hard they work. They want so desperately to make it. I would hope we would do more and open the doors even wider. May I add one important thing that people forget sometimes? Those are Mainers, so that they belong here, we'll serve them. But if you look at out-of-staters who come into our state, 20% of students who enroll in our colleges from our state stay in our state. It may become one of the most important recruitment tools you have to bring young people to the state, to actually start to look at that and see what a difference that can make to get them to be here. So I promise you, we've done some very good things. I think they'll even do more in the future. And I hope we see them as what they are, which is they are Maine people and a tremendous resource for us.
Senator Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, let me just again echo some statements that others have made. Thank you. 20 plus years, I can't imagine that there are other colleagues of yours around the country who have been that long in a position. So thank you for all those years of service. I wanted to just ask you a quick question about the mediation issue. You mentioned that I think over 50% of the students that are basically aren't ready to begin to work. And I wanted to ask you, with your experience of over 2 decades, has that been a problem we've just been ignoring? Is that percentage been, in your view, increasing over the years? Has it always been that true that over half the kids aren't ready to do the work, or is it trending one direction or the other?
I think it's leveling off, which I hope that means that we will see decreases with higher performance in our K-12 system as students come on. But you understand there are decades of people who've already graduated that will need access to this service. I would say, when I look at on English and the writing side, the university played a magnificent role with convening educators from community college, the university, and K-12 to address that, and we've had great results. We are at or below the national average. We have not addressed the math problem. We keep sidestepping the math problem. And forgive me for somebody who listens to everybody talk about STEM in the future. There is no STEM in the future without math. So that issue must be front and center, and I would hope that will be addressed. Part of the workforce, statewide workforce plan that you mentioned, Senator Representative Grant, has that very topic to be looked at by the higher eds and K-12. It must be addressed. Please, to the Education Committee, this is my last time in front of you, I would expect. Please take that issue on. You will be happy in the end for Maine people if you address it.
Yes, Representative Ford.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your time with us. And I think it's amazing what the community colleges have done under your leadership. And it's been a real pleasure to work with you. I guess the question is, for you, is I remember a couple of, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you had a couple of comments that stuck with me. I wanted to know if they still hold true. One of them was this issue about sort of, I guess it's like a price elasticity question. I mean, if you raise tuition by $20, you lose 15% of your students. There was some number like that you cited. I'd love to know an update on that. The second question I had was something else that I think you said, and it was about the unwillingness of Maine students to travel to go to higher education, and sort of the unusual nature of that. Why that was not the case everywhere. And then finally, I'll just say, I love the new ad for SMCC that's on TV. It's a real good sales job. So, and I mean that in a positive sense, not a sales job.
All of us in higher ed are salespeople. That's a fact, particularly this time. We do have, what's very important for us is we conducted an ability to pay study 5 years ago and just updated it recently. And that really was back to my comment. It doesn't matter what our tuition is, it's the ability to make people to pay. And here's what we found out. If we raise tuition $5 a credit hour, that's $150 a year, we lose as close to 20% of our enrollment. So those of you who in the private sector, you understand price sensitivity. That is the point. So when you look at us raising tuition, when we have in the last couple of years, it's only been $2 a credit hour, $60 a year. Now, some people smile and say, oh, that's crazy. Is that what you're doing? But you have to look at the students we're serving. Price matters. I don't think people always understand that. I hope FAME updates a magnificent study they did about price sensitivity, and what they found is so many students don't even apply because there's even sticker shock. They don't see how it fits in their family income or their own income to make it. So price matters as an incentive for people to get attached. And who knows, with last night's announcement, the future may be very different for community colleges being free tuition if that ever comes to pass.
There you go. And Representative Roxana, she's up here.
President Fitzsimmons, good morning. I can't have you here without talking to you about remediation because we've talked about this for so many years. And I wanted to ask you where adult education is in this whole piece, because for a long time I've been advocating for a larger role for adult education, because adult education can provide that remediation without people having to dip into their Pell Grants. And that is a concern where you see students who leave having used up so much money and have no credits at all because all the money has gone into remediation courses. So can you just, thank you, address address that for me and the role that adult education can play and where we all stand now.
If you looked at remedial education services in the state, we provide about 1/3 just at our colleges alone. So 2/3 are done in adult ed. Clearly, adult ed is underfunded in that area. I think they should be the biggest player, maybe the only player, if we ever get them to the level of service. If we were to back up now, it'd be a crisis. We're in that journey for quite a while. But I believe that's where it belongs. I think they can do it well. But it's a little confusing sometimes. There's about 111 adult ed programs in our state. Maybe only 7 offer any remediation. So it's not as widespread as people think. Some of the biggest cities in the state don't offer it at all. So I think if you want to look to the future, support adult ed, get them serious about remediation. And what I'd also say, which is also in the workforce development plan, making Representative Grant quite happy and Senator Valentino, is that we are meeting with, I won't be myself, but my successor, we're meeting with the Chancellor, with Bill Brennan and the Department of Education to actually talk about this issue about making sure that the adult ed is aligned with what higher ed needs for those people to come through. If you look at the college transition program, which is a wonderful effort, but 50% of the students they send have remedial issues. So we need to align higher ed with the adult ed to make a difference. But that's where it belongs. I agree with you.
This is a question. This is thank you, Dr. Fitzsimmons. We've worked together for 14 years. You have provided extraordinary vision, dedication, and leadership in building the system we have, and it is an incredible system. And I'm so pleased that today you've had the opportunity to remind us of where we started and where we are now. And you deserve the credit for having built that. Obviously, lots of people helped, but it was your vision and dedication and leadership that really got us there. So on behalf of the people of Maine, I want to thank you for your extraordinary work and we miss you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. My appreciation for all of you for all of your work.